This is Brooke Wanser. I'm the reporter for the Franklin Homepage, and I'm here today with Dana McLendon, Ward 2 Alderman, and we are talking about his bid for re-election. Dana, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a 49-year-old trial lawyer. I've lived in Franklin since 1995. My wife and I moved here when we were 27 and had no children. Now, all these years later, we've raised both our sons. They're at the University of Tennessee. They graduated from Franklin High. And I was elected in 1997, and I've been re-elected since to the Ward 2 Alderman position.
So why do you want to continue to hold the position you have right now?
Well, two reasons. One of them is I've always kind of lived a life of service, and I didn't intend to get into politics when I did. It was sort of almost accidental, but I've really come to love the job. It's a great way to give back and set a good example for my kids and others. That's the generic reason. The more particular reason is that there are some very big projects coming to Ward 2. We have a wastewater treatment plant expansion, renovation, and we have Mac Hatcher. We're also just about to finish up Hillsborough Road, so I really want to see, those are projects I've been working on for a long time, and I really kind of want to see those through.
Okay. So I have a list of business-related questions since we're at the Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
The first one is, what is the status on the proposal to replace City Hall, and is that a priority to you?
I don't know that that's going to get off the ground anytime soon because of the budget constraints. We've got a lot of commitments that we're trying to do that are a little bit easier to justify to the general public. You know, we've got major road projects and infrastructure projects. We make no mistake, we do need a new city hall. That building has served its useful life, and it's patched together with bubble gum and Band-Aids. But it's a big expense, and as much as I would love to see one, I don't think we're quite ready to bite off that kind of expense just yet.
Okay. Next question is about paid parking. Paid parking spaces recently became a reality on some private property in downtown Franklin. Should the city get in on paid parking or metering?
No. In fact, the lots that are paid parking now, the city used to lease from those landowners and allow the general public to park there for free. Those landowners, as was their right to do, opted out of those leases and have now gone with a private paid parking firm. That's their right. I don't protest that, but the city of Franklin, in my view, should not be in the business of charging for parking.
Okay. Williamson County and Middle Tennessee in general has been a hotbed of economic growth for a number of years. What is it that this area has naturally or policy-wise that makes that so?
Great schools, good business-friendly policies, a beautiful place to live. People from other parts of the country come here and remind us, oh my gosh, it's so green, you know, and I was in the desert in California a couple weeks ago and I thought, wow, it's not green. It's a beautiful place to live with great schools and a real good energy and synergy of entrepreneurship and business-minded people, and it just seems to just be, I don't want to say it's self-perpetuating, but it kind of like attracts like, and I think it's been real successful because of that.
So what differentiates Williamson County and Franklin from the rest of Middle Tennessee?
Well, I think the schools are probably the thing that is the single biggest divider. There's a lot of great places to live in Middle Tennessee. People pick Franklin for a lot of different reasons, the historical importance or the cost of the house compared to somewhere else, but I think probably the school system is the thing that if you have the choice to live anywhere in the Nashville metropolitan and surrounding counties, and you have a school-aged child, that's probably a pretty big factor for you.
Okay. Next up we have affordable housing. Some people call this workforce housing as well. On a chamber trip to Colorado recently, the local delegation was introduced to attainable housing. Do you believe this is an issue, and if so, is there a public role to be played in solving it?
It is an issue, and yes, there is a public role. It is an issue. You don't have to have a single altruistic bone in your body to accept that this is an issue that we should all be interested in. There are those that would say it's an issue because people that don't make a lot of money should be able to live here. It enhances the fabric of our community. That's true. That doesn't necessarily convince anyone to agree to a particular project. The reasons that it's an issue for the general public to embrace as an issue that belongs to them to solve is if you like service, if you like good service, and if you like to be able to go places and get your tasks done, or if you just like good people showing up when you have a heart attack, then it's important that those people have the option to live in the community that they work in so that they are not tempted to take a job elsewhere that they can commute to more easily, which ties directly to the second issue, which is traffic. If for no other reason than traffic, we should be doing what we can to promote and encourage affordable, attainable, or workforce housing. Because if someone that is a nurse or a teacher or who works at Target or is a firefighter or a police officer or whatever, if those people cannot afford to live in our community, but they choose to work here, then they are commuting perhaps from Marshall County or Cheatham County or wherever. Well, that's road miles. That's a car on the road in our community, more miles than they would have to be if they were able to live in the community nearby where they work. So there is a traffic solution embedded in affordable housing. So those two reasons don't require that you have any altruism as a reason. Those two reasons exist today whether you like it or not. And so yes, the public has a role in this because we can and should create policies that at least permit the private sector to attempt to solve this problem or make some dents in it. So things like density and these discussions get difficult because frequently we'll have a project come in and sometimes the people that live in the area of the project react negatively to the project. We need those people to not react negatively, not because they shouldn't. I'm not saying that I'm making a moral judgment. I'm saying that we should have those people say, oh good, now my kid's kindergarten teacher can live near us. Now the guy that came to the house when I called the fire department can live near us, or whatever. So we need to create an education around this issue, and then we need policies that permit the private sector to try to solve it.
Now, at a Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting this week, you voted for a golf course in a 54-acre parcel of land where the options were affordable housing, the golf course, or the Discovery Center.
Right.
Can you explain why you voted for the golf course over the affordable housing option?
It's not because I didn't think the affordable housing or the Discovery Center were not worthy projects. The golf course exists now in the area, and I was there yesterday, and they were hosting 11 middle school girls teams for the league championship, and it was probably about at capacity. They were not able to have anyone else golf at that time, and you almost couldn't park. So the golf course exists there now, and for them to expand, this is the only choice. And I think that that's a good thing to have in our community, is a public course on which seniors, students, and just people from all walks of life can go play golf. We can offer the Discovery Center and the affordable housing needs another place. The golf course, we can't. This is the only place that they can expand. So I want, and I committed, to have all three of those options delivered in our community. But that particular parcel of land, the golf course needed it. No other parcel solved their need.
Fair enough. You were talking a bit about traffic issues. So Franklin Transit Authority, what do you think the future is of public transit for Franklin?
Well, this is another example of where we may be a victim of our own success. We have a very affluent community, and people are attached to their mobility, and they're attached to the freedom that comes with a car. And I'll be the first one to admit my family is as guilty as anyone. We have 4 drivers and 4 cars. So the future for transit is, I would like for people to maybe be willing to suffer a little bit of inconvenience, but I think until we have more of it that people need, it's going to be a hard sell. We're used to being able to get in our car at any time of day, go anywhere we want, and park where we want for free. So it's hard to sell somebody, stand here and wait for a bus that'll take you to the same place that you could have just taken your Suburban. I think inevitably, as the community grows, as the population grows, there'll be more people opting into it, and we need to be ready to encourage that. We don't want to be waiting around for the demand to happen. And in the meantime, the people that are using it need it. So this is one of those things that we're not trying to make money. We're trying to provide a service to people that need it. So for the time being, if we are able to deliver that need, then I'm for it.
The Franklin Transit Authority just revealed that they are going to be adding 2 new shuttle lines and adding 100 stops to the 75 current stops they already have. Do you support that?
Yeah, those people are really good at what they do, and they use like science and objective criteria. So I don't meddle. I'm not going to go over there and tell them not to do that. If they think that that's the best way to serve the needs that they are serving, then I'm going to let the experts be experts.
Okay. So the next question is on corporate welfare, quote unquote. Has this area come to depend on corporate incentives too much for relocation or expansion?
We've done some tax increment financing. I don't know that we wouldn't have gotten the headquarters and the businesses that we got if we hadn't done it. I'm going to continue to be willing to entertain that. I think, though, that to some extent we kind of have the magnet that we don't have to be terribly generous with it anymore. I don't want to say take it or leave it, but we do need to be very judicious in the use of, I don't like calling it corporate welfare because that's a pejorative term, but we do need to be judicious in the use of when and how we do it. And it needs to demonstrate that in spite of the break that we give, it more than pays itself back at the end.
So on the topic of businesses coming into this area, much of the infrastructure in Cool Springs was done in conjunction with developers who were required to contribute to support their adding to traffic volume. How do you feel about this? Is it fair? Should it continue? Are you concerned that it could discourage economic development?
We have revised our impact fee ordinances, not just the road impact fee, but also the adequate facilities tax, the parkland dedication, and so on. We attach a great deal of taxes to development. None of that seems to have prevented the explosive growth that we have had. And I'm not saying that we should continue to do it just to capitalize on it or because we can, but I'm more concerned about getting the infrastructure that we need and in places that we are behind, honestly, than I am. I want to be fair, and we try to be very fair, but we have to have the infrastructure if we're going to have the population and the businesses. So I think that's a fair way to do things when you can objectively measure the impact that a development has upon traffic in the area, and then ask them to make a contribution to help build the infrastructure that is necessary because of their arrival.
Okay. On the topic of green spaces, how can we protect green space while also upholding private property rights?
Well, as an alderman, I have supported at least 2 significant purchases. One was the Carn Country Club, which we've now turned into the Eastern Flank Battlefield. That's a beautiful area to go out and enjoy green space. And the other one was Harlansdale Park. In 2004, the city had the opportunity to buy Harlansdale Park, and although it seems obvious now, it was not a unanimously popular thing to do then, but I supported it, and we did it, and you see what we've got now. We just had 30,000 people at the Pilgrimage Festival, and I think by and large people would say that was a success. We also have greenways planned, so we have a lot of public money buying property for the public to enjoy as green space. Some of that's been done with public-private partnership. The golf course, for example, was purchased with half city money and half privately raised money. How do we respect private property rights? We also let people choose whether they want to sign up for things like the trusts that are available where you can gain some tax advantage but preserve the property. If they choose to do that, then that's great. I don't know that I would ever be willing to go so far as to condemn or take some private property for just green space. That seems that's a little bit farther than I would be willing to go with that power. But I think we've done a pretty good job of creating some permanent green space in the community with public support in the form of tax money.
On the topic of urban communities, do you expect new urbanism like West Haven to be the dominant form of residential development in the future, or will suburban models of the past be what we see?
I hope and think we're probably done with the cul-de-sac concept. I live in a neighborhood that is heavily cul-de-sac. It's a 1980s era development, and there's a lot of things I would change about it. West Haven is a better example of a livable, workable, walkable environment where you can live at West Haven and not have to leave for a long time just to get your needs met. If you work from home, it might be, I don't know how long, before you had to leave West Haven. Things that you don't necessarily notice about one community versus another that makes it different and maybe better. I live in Fieldstone Farms and I love my neighborhood, but there are things that I would change that would make it better. For example, I would turn all the houses on Lexington Parkway and Fieldstone Parkway to face those roads instead of shielding them with landscape berms and privacy fences. Because people drive too fast on Lexington Parkway and Fieldstone Parkway, and I'll admit, I've done it. If you go over to West Haven, I think there's less of that because it feels more like a place that you shouldn't drive that fast. And they did that by putting the buildings close to the street, putting the houses close to the street, facing the street, the major streets. So I think, you know, when we were, I voted against West Haven on the final reading at the time, not because I didn't approve of the internal design, but because I thought it was a bad place to do it at the time because we still don't have Mac Hatcher. So there's a traffic burden that West Haven has created that I wish that it had been done more in like Berry Farms area. That said, I read the book that Andre Stawani wrote, and I think when you read that book, you're thinking, this all seems so obvious, you know. So to answer the question directly, I think the newer models of development are probably more going to be what we see because that's what people want.
Okay. So my final question is, if you were to be reelected as alderman, what areas of business would you prioritize in terms of housing, in terms of economic development, and creating new businesses?
You mean what issues would I?
Yes.
Oh, infrastructure and parks, top two for the people that live here. We do a lot of things because it promotes tourism. We do a lot of things because it's good for business, and that's great. My priorities will continue to be infrastructure and parks and services for the people that already live here. And when we have the opportunity to do things that promote tourism and promote and attract business, that's great. I'm not ruling those out. But we have 70,000 people that live in the city of Franklin, and we need to serve their needs first.
Is there anything else you want to say to your constituents or people you're hoping for their vote again?
I would want people to know that voting, while it's a right, in my view, is a civic responsibility rising to a duty. So I hope that as many people will go out and vote in a race where the Board of Mayor and Alderman can set your property tax rates and decide whether or not your trash gets picked up. I hope people are as interested in voting in that as they were in the presidential election just a few months ago. So get out and vote.
Thank you, Dana. This has been Brooke Wanser for the Franklin homepage, bringing you interviews with alderman candidates for the 2017 election.